Oh, yeah. There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 10th presentation at Clio. So today we have the absolute pleasure to be joined by Daniel, the CEO and founder of vacat. Before we begin, I would just like to remind everyone that this presentation should last about 30 minutes and will be followed by Q&A. It would really be great if everyone could prepare a few questions to ask to really make the interaction dynamic, and so to really have a good exchange on consulting, on vacat, and on Daniel. Also, it's better if everyone has their mics muted, so we have better audio clarity. So that would really help. Now let's begin. So, Daniel, if you and I were physically together, I would right now hand you the mic.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining on Sunday. 3 p.m. or whatever time it is, depending on your location. So basically, for today, I have a few points on case studies, which is the main topic of the presentation. I'm also going to do a quick intro. So who am I? What are the case studies? What are the types? Some tips and mistakes. And then I'll have 2 or 3 slides on vacat. So kind of a new way of getting into consulting or any other industry that you might be interested in. And then, as it was said, we'll follow to the Q&A. So guys, let's do like a full presentation, and then we'll have enough time to answer any of your questions. Whatever question about consulting cases you may have, feel free to ask. So, in terms of my profile, before founding vacat and becoming an unpaid CEO, I spent 5 years in management consulting, in 2 years more or less in Oliver Wyman, and 3 in Delta, in Dubai and New York offices. So again, if you will have any questions about those markets, also happy to answer. During my 5 years, I've done 12, 13-ish projects across 9 countries. I was mostly focused on telco. Delta, which was my first company that I joined after graduating from London Business School. Delta is kind of focused on TMT market. And then when I moved to Oliver Wyman, naturally I joined the TMT team as well. So I think I have done only 1 project that was non-TMT related, and that was a banking project. So going straight to the cases. Cases, like I remember when I was a student, everyone was preparing for cases and, going through all those books and frameworks and getting super stressed out about interviews to consulting firms. But when it comes to cases, you may have 1,000 different examples, but I think based on my experience, kind of from the cases that I've done when I was interviewing, from the cases that I've given as an interviewer, there are basically 3 types of cases. So one of them is an estimation, another one is valuation, and then you can have a kind of prioritization case studies. And of course, you may have like a mix of all 3. So estimation cases, it's when you say estimation, most people think about market sizing. So the number of tennis balls that you can put in a Boeing. It's not exactly this. It's more about how big is the market for a specific company, how much revenue can you generate, what would be the cost associated, how many customers you can get if you launch a new product, if you launch a new company in a new market, etc. And I'm going to give a few examples of cases like this in a few minutes. The valuation cases, it's basically DCF. And actually, I think like 80% of cases that I've seen, especially when I was applying for an analyst level, 80%, the vast majority were the valuation cases. So, I'm going to mention it again later on, but I do know how to do a basic DCF, how to do a break-even estimation. And you can have cases like, valuing a business, valuing a project, a company wants to buy my company, like another company wants to buy my company, what should be the price that I ask, etc., etc. And then the last but not least, prioritization. So it might be a mix of valuation. So for example, we have two projects, or two companies, which of the projects, which of the companies we should go after. And then we can add some qualitative assessments to the case. But it's also about common business sense. So you may be given a few initiatives for a company, and you would have to assess which initiative would you implement as the first one, which initiative is more important. You can have questions about the latest trends, especially if you're applying for companies that are specific, focus on a specific industry, for example, telco. You should know, at least some basics about the local market, or I don't know, 5G. So it might be a question about, given a few trends, which is the most important strategy that a company should follow. And then, the valuation-based prioritization is what I mentioned before. So you would have a few different projects that you need to value. You add to that qualitative kind of assessment, and then you need to prioritize different kind of projects. And this is basically it. So to be honest, like if I were to give one main advice, I would rather focus on practicing that common sense rather than learning by heart all those frameworks from different books and so on and so forth. In terms of real examples and why consultants use case studies. So a case study during a case interview puts you in the shoes of a real engagement manager. And of course, real projects are much more complex, and you would have to do kind of much more analysis, and you would have a team and a manager who would kind of lead the entire team. But this is a very simplified, simulation of a real case study. A client comes to you with a question, and basically during that 30-40 minute case study, you need to give the answer to that client. So a few cases, and those are actually real cases. Okay. So those are the real cases that I've seen. I think all of them were during my interviews when I was applying to different companies. So, for example, a client comes to you and says that he wants to buy a gas station, or that was actually a land for a gas station. Is that a good idea or not? So this is this was using the kind of the framework, the structure from the previous slide. That's a mix of valuation, because we have different cash flows, different costs, and then prioritization, which strategy is the client should follow, or estimating a revenue of a new telecom entrant in Kuwait. So here we have the revenue and cost estimation, a bit of local industry knowledge, because you would have to know how many telecom players are in the market. And again, I was at that point, I was already in the industry for a few years, so that was kind of expected that I would know that. Design a few initiatives, digitalization initiatives, and then prioritize them using some framework. So again, here, you cannot learn by heart a framework from a book. This is more about the common business sense. What are the main digital kind of trends, and which are the most important, which will bring the most value to the potential client. Estimating the price of a local bar that my friend wants to buy. This was a real case that I've done when I was applying to Delta. So here, how many clients do we have? What's the average price for the drink? Do we sell food, etc., etc.? Or like pure kind of market estimation cases. That was actually not a consulting case. That was for a private equity fund, but a client, like a company, wants to open an ice cream business in Nigeria. Is that a good idea? How much revenue they can generate, if any? And why do we have cases in consulting? Because again, during a simplified kind of engagement or simulation of an engagement, a company or an interviewer can assess the core skills that are expected of you, even when you're an analyst or an intern. So first of all, can you, take the business problem or the business question and put it in a proper structure? And I'm going to mention about structure later on, because this is, I believe, the most important kind of part of a case interview. Secondly, do you have that common business sense? Can you think critically? Can you, if you get a question, can you focus on the most important, on the most important information? Can you perhaps give an alternative solution? Because when you join a consulting company, you're kind of expected that, from day one, you will be contributing to your project team. Even if you don't know the market, even if you don't have all the skills and all the knowledge, I mean, you have to have that common sense right away. The basic financial business knowledge. So again, even if you study, if you study finance or management, business administration, etc., you probably cover or should cover most of the basics during your academic course. If you're studying something completely not related, history, arts, etc., it's good to a bit kind of acquire at least the basics on, what's the revenue, what's the EBITDA, how to do a DCF, etc. Because again, when you join a project, it's kind of you don't have to know all the industry knowledge. It's impossible to join a consulting company and have all the skills and knowledge that you would be required on an engagement, but at least knowing the basics would help a lot, and hence this is kind of expected and tested during an interview. Quantitative skills. Consulting, most consulting companies have quite a large quantitative kind of parts on each engagement. And of course, it's not going to be, at least I've never seen any kind of mathematical questions that you need to calculate something super quickly to show how smart, kind of what a quant brain you have. It's more about processing simple calculations, summing, division, multiplication, percentages and ratios. So 1 point, always have your piece of paper and pen. If it's a phone interview, have your Excel open as well, because this usually kind of appears on each case. Your ability to prioritize analysis. This is super important. On every case, on every kind of engagement project and a proper project in consulting, you would be able to, spend months on analyzing data, on analyzing, trends, etc. But usually you have 3 months to complete the entire engagement. Therefore, the famous 80-20 approach, you need to focus on what will help you prove your hypothesis, or prove it wrong. And during a case study, you also need to focus on what's most important. And going into the wrong direction may actually harm your kind of interview assessment. And then the soft skills. So your ability to drive the discussion in a structured manner as if you were talking to a client, and being concise, giving a concise recommendation and asking for the right questions. So again, this is assessing a case study, is assessing your ability to become a consultant in a very simplified way. And you need to focus on all those points and master all those points if you want to nail the case component. In terms of a few tips and what to do during a case interview. So the most important thing, what I mentioned before, is
hello.
Christian, can you thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right. So the most important part is that It might be like, what's the word? Zoom, like those people who join Zoom just to interrupt. I don't know. All right, let's try again. I've had it on a different call that I mean, someone was unmuting and there was some gibberish in the background, and that person was not able to be muted. Anyway, so the most important thing is the structure, because I mean, every consultant knows that if you join the team as an intern or an analyst, you're not gonna do the calculations in your head. You're not gonna know everything on day one, but you have to know how to structure the problem, and you have to know how to structure the analysis. I would say that this is one of the most important aspects that is assessed during a case interview. Therefore, you need to put extra attention to the structure during the entire interview. So first thing, when you are given a case, and I mean cases, most of the cases that I've seen, it's a very simple kind of information that you're being given. For example, I'm your client and I come to you and I'm telling you that I want to buy a land for a gas station. Is that a right strategy or not? And that's it. So usually on most of the cases, it's a very simple information, and for more info you need to ask questions. In some other questions you may be given a bit more data. So most importantly, I mean, structure everything that you're being given on paper. I mean, always write down every piece of information that you get, and before you start solving the case, confirm what you had, what you got. The reason for it is because, I mean, of course, you're joining the interview, you're stressed. If you're being given that, I don't know, a company has $100,000 revenue, I mean, chances are that you may misheard it. You may write $1 million revenue or whatever different currency. You may write a wrong zero. It's always good to confirm the data that you're being given, because if you make a mistake kind of writing down information, you will be, I mean, your interviewer would tell you kind of that actually it's a wrong number. I mean, it's super simple. And I mean, it happens a lot. If you don't do that and you continue with your analysis, and then you come with the wrong the wrong answer, then, you know, it doesn't put you in a good light, because your interviewer might not even know that you've been using wrong input. So super important, always start the case with confirming the data that you've been given. The second super important point on structure, always ask for a minute to structure your the process, to structure a hypothesis that you will use during the case. And I mean, even if you think that the case is super simple, and you already know that, I mean, you should go to the free cash flow and terminal value, and this will be the NPV, etc. Always take that minute, write down all the possible scenarios that can come out of that case, and during your assessment, work with that hypothesis from the beginning. If you structure it correctly, I mean, I've seen very tricky cases which seem super simple from the get-go, but actually they have a few twists in the middle, and if you don't have a right structure and you kind of meet that plot twist in the middle, you may get lost, and you may come with the wrong answer. And I mean, coming with the wrong answer does not mean that you will fail, because again, during a case study, your interviewer will see your structure and all that point, all those things. But if you use the hypothesis-driven approach from the get-go, your chances for solving the case correctly and for kind of getting a positive review after an interview increase drastically. The third point that I've seen a lot, both during interviews and when I was practicing cases with some of my friends, is never assume. I mean, you can ask your questions, but do not assume anything. So if you're being given that I don't know, that a company is generating X number of revenue or has X number of clients. Do not assume that, okay, like I've read somewhere that in that business, the gross margin is around 80%. So probably this will be the whatever, another number. You can always ask, like, does the interviewer have kind of information that you're looking for? If they don't, then you can say, like, okay, let me, like, I've read somewhere or I've seen on another case that this is the industry average. So can I assume that the cost structure or the segmentation will be this and that? Unless, like, if you don't ask for data in the beginning, and if you don't confirm that you can assume something during a case study, you're kind of you're facing a big risk that actually your kind of client or your interviewer has the correct assumption. And I mean, in a real engagement, I mean, of course, you can do some research, you can get some data on your own, but everything that comes from the client, you always try to get it from the client in the first place. So this is a very common mistake. So always ask questions, never assume anything, unless it's basic, right? But that's a bit of a different story. Another point is, even if a case is super simple, and you need to multiply 10 by 10 or do 10% of 100, always walk through your always walk your interviewer through your calculations. Like, so mention out loud that we have $100 revenue, but our margin is 10%. Therefore, 100 times 10% is 10, and we move to the next step. It's something that many people don't do because, I mean, you're multiplying 100 by 10%, so it should be simple enough that you can do it in your head. But I mean, again, you're in a stressful environment. You're doing an interview with a company that you're applied because you want to work there. You may make that mistake, and you will do 10% out of 100 equals 100. I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, it happens. And it's not because you don't know how to count. It's, again, you may have a wrong number written down, you're stressed, etc., etc., etc. If you walk your interviewer through your even super simple calculations, and if you make a stupid mistake like this, you most likely, your interviewer will mention it, and you will correct that mistake immediately. And most cases that involve some quantitative assessment, I mean, they have a few levels of calculations. So if you spot the mistake in the beginning, the chances that you will derive to a correct answer at the end, I mean, again, they increase significantly. And if you make a mistake, 100 times 10% equals 100, and you correct it as you go, it's much easier to do so versus when you're 5 calculations into the case and you're just giving a wrong final answer. Then, in terms of the final conclusion, always kind of, before you give the final conclusion, the final answer, always take a step back and think, I mean, does it make sense? Does it make from a qualitative and quantitative point of view? If it was solved super quickly and the case took 5 minutes, probably it's wrong. Probably your answer is wrong. And actually, the gas station, the land for the gas station case study that I've mentioned is one of those cases that you can solve in 5 minutes. You give the final conclusion, but actually it's absolutely wrong. So if you think that either it was too quick or just you have the final answer, you can always voice over that, okay, right now I think that this is the answer. I mean, this is the information that I've been given, this is the analysis that I've been given, it makes sense from a business perspective, therefore this is my final conclusion. Even if that conclusion is not correct, but which may happen. But you do take that step back and you assess the bigger the famous bigger picture. It leaves a good impression that you can approach and structure the problem correctly, and you have that business common sense. And the last one, the last not the least, again, know the basics. So regardless of your kind of academic background, you should know what's revenue, what's COGS, EBITDA, DCF, that you have a terminal value when you're doing evaluation of a business project, how to calculate that terminal value. But again, if you're also and to that point, if you're applying to a company that is focused on a specific industry or a specific market, you should also know the basics about that industry and that kind of geography. So if you're applying to Dubai office, regardless whether that's McKinsey or which is a generalistic company, versus Delta, which is a TMT focused company, I mean, you should know, a bit. The main market in the Middle East for Dubai office is Saudi Arabia. So I mean, you should know at least something, that there is a Vision 2030, that the country wants to move from oil dependency, and so on and so forth. If you're applying for a London office to Oliver Wyman, for example, which is predominantly focused on financial services, it would be good to know some basics. What are the biggest banks? I don't know, if there was a massive news, it would be good to, like in the financial industry, it would be good to know it. It's not like you will be grilled on that topic, but knowing it gives you a lot of points. And I mean, when you're applying and you put your cover letter and you mention that you want to work for company A, B, C, D, whatever, because they operate in a great market that you've been passionate about, and they operate in the industry that you've loved since you were a kid, etc., etc. It would be good to know at least the basics about that industry or market, even if you don't know much more about it. And then the last point on the cases. So things that often go wrong, and things that may, if you do a few of them, they may significantly impact your post-interview review. The most important, and I cannot stress it enough, I've seen it multiple times, it's the chaotic structure. So I've seen people come to an interview without a pen and paper, or who are not writing down the data, the hypothesis, etc., in a structured manner. And I think this is one of the main reasons why people fail cases. So that structure, if I were to choose the most important kind of part that you need to practice for your cases, is that structure. I've seen even consultants with a few years of experience trying to move to another company, doing case studies, and their structure was still not great. So this is, again, most important thing to structure. The second thing, maybe not in terms of importance, but it happens a lot, is people forget about segmentation and cannibalization. And this is actually a tip that I've been given when I was a student and I was applying for companies. And one of the partners, the partner from the gas station, actually, which I failed completely. Again, like I solved it in 5 minutes, and this is the solution. I mean, in the end, I got the offer, and I had a chat with that partner, and he said that two things that he has seen that many students forget is segmentation and cannibalization. So if you are talking about a customer uptake case or a market sizing, you have to remember that revenue estimation. You have to remember that different users, different products can have different assumption, cost structure, etc., etc. So even when you do a simple case, it's always good to ask about, if you're selling food in a bar, what would be the cost structure for food? What would be this cost structure for drinks? Do we have any premium drinks or less premium drinks? Do we have any different behavior of users when it comes to different products? even if the case doesn't have that, and you will get an answer that, you can do a simple assumption for all the products, it's always good to mention, because it shows your kind of business awareness, and a bit of that, critical thinking, etc. And cannibalization, I mean, basically, if you're introducing a new product or a new company in a market that you've already, operate, some of the users that are buying your product, and you introduce a new product, some of your existing users will move towards the new product. Therefore, your old product will lose some of the revenue. And I've seen a few cases which do not mention explicitly the cannibalization, but they do have that component to check if you have that critical thinking and bring business awareness that that would allow you to spot that missing point in the case study. Another thing is not seeing the bigger picture. And I think this is the most common thing when it comes to valuation cases. You are being given that a company wants to buy another company, and what should be the price, the enterprise value. And many people jump straight to what's the revenue, what's the free cash flow, the cost structure, yada 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 yada, but they don't ask what is that company doing, what is the client doing. Are there any synergies between those parties? Because even if investment may make sense from a purely financial perspective, it may be complete. It might be lacking that sense from a business perspective. So even if you come to the final conclusion that this is a NPV positive investment, a client should think whether that would bring synergies to the existing business, etc., etc., etc. Even if that's not a part of the case, that not seeing that can reduce some of the kind of points that you get on an interview. Another point is focusing on wrong stuff and not kind of following the 80-20 approach. What I mentioned before, an average case, an average engagement is around 3 months. So you cannot, as they say, it's in consulting, boil the ocean. You have to focus. You have to have a hypothesis when you start a case, and you have to work around that hypothesis. So you can ask about, you can do an introduction on the qualitative. For example, it's a valuation case. You have to see the bigger picture, so you have to ask a bit about the qualitative information to assess the sense of the whole thing. But again, you cannot overdo it. You cannot spend 10-15 minutes talking about the non-core analysis related stuff. You should mention it, but then you should kind of in a smooth way move to the core part of the case. Another thing, not being confident enough or being overconfident. And this is kind of two different aspects that are being assessed. So from day one, you're kind of, on day one, actually, when you get the staffing, you will fly, travel, whatever, take a bus to a client site, and you will be working, COVID aside, but you will be working directly with a client. So the company needs to be sure that you can present in a confident enough way, you can ask questions in a confident enough way, and you can present your analysis properly to the client and to the team, because this is one of the most important things that you do as a consultant. And at the same time, you shouldn't be overconfident, because if you're not a super likable person and you're super overconfident or cocky, your team has to spend with you those 14-hour, depending on a company and case, but let's say 10 to 18 hours a day in the same room. So again, you have to be that fit is also assessed through cases, how you speak, etc., etc. And the last point, which I think a lot of students the last mistake that a lot of students make is using BS frameworks. I remember when I was at business school and many of my classmates were studying, don't remember, it's Chang cases. I don't remember the book, but I mean, you have the frameworks and like the unit cost times the number of units, and you learn it by heart. And again, if you don't have any business knowledge, you should get a work kind of the basics. But if you start a case, let's say a company entering a new market, you start a case and you will start with the Porter's 5 forces. So let's first assess the bargaining power of suppliers. I mean, that's a very big red flag, because in my 5 years of consulting, I mean, we've never done a SWOT. We've never done Porter's 5 forces. This is a really good theoretical, approach. Of course, you use some of it, I mean, when a company enters a new market, you need to know what's the regulatory framework and then competition and all that stuff. But I mean, you have to apply those frameworks in a kind of more natural and business kind of in a way that makes business sense. If you throw frameworks that you learn by heart in a case interview, that's a very big red flag. I mean, at least to me. So that's it when it comes to, I see 36 minutes. That's it when it comes to cases. I have 2 more slides about vacat, and then we will move to the Q&A, so I can answer any questions that you may have. So basically, what is vacat, and I mean, why it was created, etc. So when I was a consultant, what I noticed is that I mean, let's be honest, on many cases, consultants work after hours. And what I realized that there are many tasks that can be done by a junior colleague, by an intern, something that is not kind of confidential, and something that will take a few hours, a few days. But companies do not have that ability to staff an extra intern, because we have a bigger research or a bigger document that we need to create. And at the same time, when I was a student, I mean, in my case, I've done nine internships just to figure out what career to follow. And I've done it from consulting to private equity, technology, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that, having a freelance platform where companies can give tasks to students would be a good solution to the problem that I had as a student. And all right, to a big problem that I had as a student, and to a big problem that I had as a analyst and manager, etc. So basically, vacat is a talent marketplace which works in a very simple way. I'm an analyst at a company. I have a task. My company has a profile on vacat. I can post a project, or as we call it, a micro internship, which can be a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, a few months. Students can apply for that project. They complete that project, and then after the completion, they get feedback. That feedback is also shared with the HR department, and therefore those students can turn into recruitment leads, because the company, the HR, gets dozens or hundreds, depending on the company size, validated profiles. I mean, validated because students completed work that had to be done anyway. In terms of the value for students, I mean, every project is paid. I'm going to mention it in a second. How is it paid? But we focus on career building and career exploration. So you can join vacat even when you're a freshman. I mean, and you can continue using vacat for as long as you're a student. You can build your resume from a day one, because you complete real projects for real companies. So while you cannot claim you worked at that given company, you can still put it in your CV that you completed project support, micro internship via vacat for that company. Secondly, you work directly with managers, analysts at these companies, so you expand your network. You get the foot in the door. As I mentioned, feedback after each project is shared with the HR. And some of the for example, Bain & Company mentioned that students who get positive feedback would be fast-tracked in the interview process for summer internships or full-time positions. You can test multiple career options, because when you're at university, you can attend the company presentations when they will tell you about the steep learning curve and the collaborative culture that they have and great challenges that they work on. But I mean, it's like, at least I wanted to know, what do you do on a Monday morning? When I come to work, I open my laptop, what would I do? But in a conventional setup, you have 3 summers, let's say, if you're studying for 3-4 years, 3 summers that you can use for internships. And you have to leverage those company presentations or the career or opinions of other people, friends, career advisors, etc. With vacat, you can do projects that last for a few hours or a few days, few weeks. You can do it while at university. So you can, test what it's like to work at a consulting company, what it's like to work in an FMCG company, at a startup, what is it like to work in London, in Dubai, in New York, etc., etc. And I mean, the platform is free for students. It's super easy to use. Every project is paid. You get new skills. You can do it while at university, etc. And the last slide. So how is it? How projects are paid? So the rate is centralized, and it depends on the skills that you have. When you join the platform, you get $4 an hour, which I mean is close to nothing, especially when you're based in the UK. But I mean, it takes 3 minutes to set up an account. You get $4 from after that those 3 minutes. When you fill your profile, so you need to submit the languages that you speak, about me section, your student societies that you're a part of, your work experience, and your skills, and submit your CV. So 15 more minutes, you double your rate to $8 an hour. And you also unlock the skill center, which is a catalog of different assessments. So as of now, we have 2 levels of Excel, and we have Python and SQL. Next week, we'll be adding the 3rd level of Excel, SEO, Google Ads, and we are developing your new assessments as we speak. Each of those assessments, if you pass it, if you prove your skill, increases your hourly rate, depending on the complexity, by 40 cents, 80 cents, or $1.20 per hour. And the last component is the feedback. So if you complete a project for a company, you get feedback after that project. If, for example, you get 10 out of 10, your hourly rate for future projects increases by $1.6. If you get 9 out of 10, your hourly rate increases by $1.2. All right. So the maximum that you can make on vacat is $24 an hour. But again, we're more focused about career building. As of now, we have, I guess Bunty is very bored, but I'm almost done. So as of now, I mean, we launched just last week. We've already filled 3 projects. 2 were for startups. One was an is an AR VR startup in the US. Another one is an esports startup in Singapore. We've also filled 1 project for a consulting boutique in London. They have another, I think, 1 or 2 projects that are live, but at least one of them is only for master's students. We also have currently on the platform a climate tech startup that is looking for a sales intern that speaks Spanish. And I mean, we are already in touch with companies like I mentioned, Bain, BCG, Unilever, and we are helping them prepare trials. So it's not live yet. I mean, those projects are not live yet, but they are coming to the platform soon. And for everyone, I mean, as of now, let me share the link, because we launched a week and a half ago. We're still operating in a more controlled manner. So companies can already create profiles. For students, we still have a waiting list, which is closing. We were supposed to close it on Friday, but I thought let's keep it until end of day today. The benefit of signing up through that link that I shared on chat is that you will get a 10% bonus on every single project that you do. So if your rate is $10 an hour and you work for 10 hours, you will, instead of getting $100, you will get $110. No upper cap, no limit on projects. 10% is always for you. The only thing you have to do is to fill the survey that is under the link that I shared. Tomorrow you will get access to the platform. Tomorrow probably in the afternoon, and tomorrow in the afternoon or on Tuesday the platform will become available to everyone, but only people